Some moments define us forever. Some decisions, made in seconds, change everything we thought we knew about ourselves. This is the story of a wedding day that went wrong, a runaway bride, and a man whose quiet presence would reveal truths that had been hidden for 23 years. Before we begin, tell us in the comments, where are you watching this story from? We love knowing that our community spans the entire world. And if you enjoy stories that touch the heart and make you think about life differently, subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what's coming next. The September morning broke cold and clear over Ashford, Montana, a town where everyone knew everyone, and secrets were supposed to be impossible to keep. St. Michael's Church stood at the corner of Main and Pine, its white steeple piercing the crystalline blue sky. Inside, 200 guests filled the wooden pews, their whispers creating a soft murmur that echoed off the vaulted ceiling. Jennifer Hayes stood in the bride's preparation room, staring at her reflection in the full-length mirror. The ivory dress hugged her figure perfectly, its delicate lace sleeves and flowing train exactly what she had imagined since she was a little girl. Her blonde hair was swept up in an elegant chignon, small white flowers woven through it. Diamond earrings, borrowed from her mother, caught the light. She looked perfect. She looked exactly like a bride should look, but her hands wouldn't stop shaking. "Jenny, sweetheart, you're going to smudge your makeup," her mother, Patricia Hayes, said, adjusting her daughter's veil for the third time. Patricia was a woman who had spent her entire life in Ashford, married to the town's most prominent banker, living in the biggest house on Elm Street. Everything in her world had to be perfect, especially today. "I'm fine, Mom," Jennifer whispered, but her voice cracked. Her maid of honor, Rebecca, her best friend since kindergarten, squeezed her shoulder. "It's just nerves. Every bride feels this way." But this wasn't nerves. Jennifer knew the difference. This was something deeper, something that had been growing inside her chest for months, pressing against her ribs until she could barely breathe. Every time she looked at her fiancé, Marcus Wellington, she saw a good man, a successful lawyer from Billings, handsome, charming, from the right family. He checked every box her parents had ever mentioned. He was perfect on paper, but when he kissed her, she felt nothing. When he talked about their future, the house they'd buy in Billings, the country club membership, the charity galas, she felt like she was hearing about someone else's life. 5 minutes. Someone called from the hallway. Patricia's face lit up with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "This is it, darling. Everything we've planned for. Everything you've always wanted." Jennifer nodded mechanically. Had she always wanted this? Or had she just been told she wanted it so many times that she'd started to believe it? The organ began to play. The traditional wedding march filled the church. Patricia kissed her daughter's cheek. Leaving a lipstick mark she quickly wiped away, then hurried out to take her seat. Rebecca gathered the train of Jennifer's dress, giving her friend an encouraging smile. "Ready?" Rebecca asked. Jennifer's father, Robert Hayes, appeared in the doorway. He was a tall man with silver hair and a commanding presence that had served him well as president of Ashford Community Bank. He extended his arm to his daughter, pride evident in his eyes. "My beautiful girl," he said softly. "Let's not keep your groom waiting." They walked through the church corridor. Jennifer could hear the rustle of fabric as guests stood. She could hear her own heartbeat pounding in her ears, drowning out everything else. With each step, the weight on her chest grew heavier. The doors opened. 200 faces turned toward her. At the altar, Marcus stood in his perfectly tailored tuxedo, his smile confident and bright. The late morning sun streamed through the stained glass windows, painting everything in shades of gold and amber. Jennifer took one step forward, then another. Her father's arm was steady beneath her hand, guiding her down the aisle. She saw her mother in the front row, dabbing at her eyes with a lace handkerchief. She saw Marcus's parents, the Wellingtons, sitting ramrod straight, their faces showing polite satisfaction. She saw Rebecca behind her, carefully managing the train of her dress. And then she saw him. He was sitting in the very last pew, partially hidden behind a pillar. Daniel Crawford. His weathered hands rested on his knees, his face tanned from years of working under the Montana sun. He wore a simple dark suit that looked uncomfortable on his farmer's frame. His gray eyes met hers for just a second, and in that second, something inside Jennifer broke. Daniel Crawford had been a fixture on the outskirts of Ashford for 23 years. He owned a small farm 5 miles outside town, growing wheat and raising a few head of cattle. He came to town once a week for supplies, always polite, always quiet, always alone. People knew him, but no one really knew him. He had appeared in Ashford 23 years ago, bought the old Henderson farm, and had kept to himself ever since. Jennifer had never exchanged more than a few words with him. She'd seen him at the hardware store, at the post office, always with that same quiet presence. There was no reason he should be at her wedding, no reason at all. But his eyes, those gray eyes that held something she couldn't name, made her feet stop moving. "Jenny?" her father whispered, confused. She was standing in the middle of the aisle, frozen. Marcus's smile was beginning to falter. The organ music swelled, trying to cover the awkward pause. 200 guests leaned forward slightly, sensing something was wrong. Jennifer's breath came in short gasps. The weight on her chest was crushing now. She looked at Marcus, at his perfect smile, his perfect life, his perfect expectations. Then she looked back at Daniel Crawford, that quiet farmer who had no business being here, who was looking at her with an expression that was breaking her heart for reasons she couldn't understand. And suddenly, she knew this was wrong. All of it was wrong. She was about to promise forever to a man she didn't love, to step into a life that would suffocate her, to become someone she wasn't and had never wanted to be. "I can't," she whispered. "What?" her father asked, leaning closer. "I can't do this." Her voice was louder now. The church fell silent. Even the organ stopped playing. "Jennifer, what are you talking about?" Her father's voice was low, urgent. "Everyone is watching. I can't marry him, Dad. I don't love him." Marcus took a step forward from the altar. "Jenny, you're just nervous. Come on, sweetheart. Everything's fine." But everything wasn't fine. Jennifer could feel the tears starting, hot and unstoppable. Her vision blurred. The church seemed to tilt around her. She pulled her arm from her father's grasp, grabbed the heavy skirt of her dress with both hands, and ran. She ran down the aisle, her veil flying behind her, guests gasping and standing. She heard her mother cry out, heard Marcus calling her name, heard the chaos erupting behind her. She burst through the church doors into the bright September sunlight, stumbled down the stone steps in her impractical heels, and kept running. She didn't know where she was going. She just knew she had to get away, away from the church, away from the expectations, away from the life that wasn't hers. Behind her, inside the church, pandemonium broke loose. Patricia Hayes had rushed to Marcus, trying to apologize, trying to explain something she didn't understand herself. Robert Hayes stood frozen in the aisle, his face pale with shock and embarrassment. Guests were whispering, pulling out phones, already spreading the story that would dominate Ashford's conversations for months. And in the last pew, Daniel Crawford stood up. Without saying a word to anyone, without explaining himself, he walked down the aisle and out of the church. Several people noticed him leave, adding another layer of mystery to an already shocking situation. But no one stopped him. No one knew him well enough to question him. Jennifer ran until her lungs burned. She was on Maple Street now, her dress dragging through the dust, her veil tangled in her hair. She reached up and pulled it off, throwing it onto the sidewalk. Tears streamed down her face, ruining the makeup that had taken an hour to apply. She didn't care. For the first time in months, maybe years, she felt like she could breathe. She found herself in Riverside Park, a small green space along the banks of the Clearwater River that ran through Ashford. She collapsed onto a bench, her dress billowing around her, and put her face in her hands. The sobs came hard and fast, shaking her whole body. How could she have let it get this far? How could she have said yes to Marcus in the first place? She had known, even then, that something was wrong. But everyone had been so happy. Her parents had been thrilled. Marcus had been perfect. It had seemed easier to just go along with it, to believe that love would grow, that she would adjust. But love hadn't grown, and she couldn't adjust to living someone else's life. "Jennifer," the voice was quiet, gentle. She looked up, tears still streaming down her face, and saw Daniel Crawford standing a few feet away. He had followed her. This man she barely knew had left her wedding and followed her. "Mr. Crawford," she managed to say, her voice broken. I'm sorry you had to witness that." He moved closer, slowly, as if approaching a frightened animal. "No need to apologize." He pulled a clean handkerchief from his pocket and offered it to her. She took it, wiping at her face, smearing the expensive makeup. "I don't understand. Why were you even there?" "At the church." Daniel was quiet for a moment. He sat down on the bench, careful to leave space between them. The river flowed past, its gentle sound filling the silence. Finally he spoke. "I came because I needed to see you one last time before you married him." Jennifer stared at him, confused. "I don't understand. We've barely ever spoken." "I know." Daniel's voice was soft, filled with something that sounded like regret. "I've watched you grow up from a distance, Jennifer. I've seen you become this beautiful, bright young woman, and I've seen you disappear over these last 2 years." "What are you talking about?" Daniel turned to face her fully. His weathered face was kind, his gray eyes sad. "You used to have this light in you. I'd see you in town, laughing with your friends, talking about the books you were reading, the places you wanted to travel. You wanted to be a teacher, work with kids. You talked about maybe joining the Peace Corps after college. You had dreams." Jennifer felt a chill run through her. "How do you know all that?" "Small town, people talk, and I paid attention." He paused. "Then you met Marcus Wellington, and slowly that light started going out. I'd see you in town with him, and you'd be quieter, smaller, like you were folding yourself up to fit into someone else's picture." The tears started again. "I thought I was doing the right thing. My parents were so proud. Marcus is successful, respected. Everyone thought we were perfect together. Everyone except you," Daniel said gently. Jennifer nodded, unable to speak. "I wasn't going to come today," Daniel continued. "I told myself it wasn't my place, that your life was your own to live. But then, this morning, I couldn't shake this feeling. I had to be there. I had to see if you'd really go through with it." He smiled sadly. "And when you looked at me in that church, I saw it, that light trying to break through. And I thought, if she runs, she's going to need someone who understands." "Understands what?" Daniel looked out at the river. "What it's like to walk away from everything expected of you." They sat in silence for a moment. Jennifer felt the September breeze on her face, heard the birds singing in the trees, smelled the river and the grass. Real things, simple things, beautiful things she had stopped noticing. "Who are you really?" she asked quietly. Daniel took a deep breath. "Someone who made a choice a long time ago. Someone who left behind a life that looked perfect from the outside but was killing him on the inside." "What kind of life?" "Corporate law, New York City, a partnership in one of the biggest firms in Manhattan, a fiancé from the right family, a penthouse apartment, invitations to all the right parties." His voice was matter-of-fact, no bitterness. Just stating facts. "I was 30 years old and miserable. I'd wake up every morning with this weight on my chest, just like you described feeling. I'd look in the mirror and not recognize myself." Jennifer's eyes widened. "You were a lawyer?" "For 8 years. Graduated top of my class from Columbia. Landed a dream job. Climbed the ladder fast. My parents were so proud. Everyone said I had it all." He smiled wryly. "Except peace. Except joy. Except a sense that I was living my own life instead of performing someone else's script." "What happened?" "I had a case. A big one. Corporate merger. Millions of dollars at stake. I was working 20-hour days, living on coffee and ambition. And one morning, I was walking to the office, and I passed a homeless man on the street. Everyone walked right by him, me included, but something made me look back, and he was smiling. This man who had nothing was sitting in the sunshine, feeding pigeons, smiling, and I realized I couldn't remember the last time I genuinely smiled." Daniel's voice grew softer. "That night, I called my fiancée, Nicole, and told her I couldn't marry her. I told my firm I was quitting, I told my parents I was leaving, and within a week, I had sold everything I owned, packed a single bag, and driven west. I drove until I found a place that felt like I could breathe. That place was Ashford, Montana." Jennifer listened, transfixed. This quiet farmer had once been a high-powered Manhattan lawyer. It seemed impossible. "My parents haven't spoken to me since," Daniel continued. "They think I had a breakdown, that I threw away my potential. Nicole married someone else within a year, one of my former colleagues. Everyone from my old life thinks I lost my mind, but I didn't lose my mind. I found it. Do you ever regret it?" "Not once." Daniel's answer was immediate and certain. "Not a single day in 23 years. I wake up with the sunrise. I work with my hands. I grow things. I take care of animals. I know every person in this town, even if most of them don't really know me. My life is simple, quiet, and completely mine. I'm happy, Jennifer, genuinely happy, and I wasn't before, no matter how impressive my life looked from the outside." Jennifer wiped her eyes again. "Why are you telling me all this?" "Because I saw myself in you today, standing in that church, about to make a promise that would lock you into a life you don't want. And I couldn't let you do it without someone telling you that it's okay to walk away. It's okay to disappoint people. It's okay to choose yourself." A car drove by on the street beyond the park. The sound of sirens in the distance suggested that the drama at the church had escalated. Jennifer knew she'd have to face her parents, face Marcus, face all of it eventually. But right now, sitting on this bench with this unexpected man, she felt something she hadn't felt in 2 years. She felt like herself. "What do I do now?" she asked. "Whatever you want," Daniel said. "That's the whole point. You get to decide. Everyone's going to hate me. Some will, some won't, but you'll survive it. And on the other side, you'll be free." Jennifer looked down at her wedding dress, this expensive symbol of other people's dreams. "I don't even know who I am anymore. I've been playing this role for so long." "Then you get to find out," Daniel said. That's the adventure. Figuring out who you are when you stop trying to be who everyone else wants you to be. A truck pulled up to the edge of the park. Patricia Hayes jumped out, her face a mixture of fury and fear. Jennifer, what on earth is going on? Do you have any idea what you've done? Marcus is devastated. The guests are… She stopped when she saw Daniel. Who are you? Daniel stood. I'm just someone who was leaving, Mrs. Hayes. Wait, Jennifer said, standing too. She looked at her mother, then at Daniel. For the first time that day, she felt clear. Mom, I'm not marrying Marcus. Patricia's face went white. Don't be ridiculous. You're just having cold feet. Everyone gets them. We'll go back to the church. You'll apologize and… No, Mom, I'm not going back. I don't love him. I never did. And I'm not going to spend the rest of my life pretending. Jennifer Hayes, you listen to me. No. Jennifer's voice was firm. You listen to me. I've been listening to everyone else my whole life. I went to the college you chose. I joined the sorority you picked. I dated the men you approved of. I shaped myself into the daughter you wanted. But I'm done, Mom. I'm 25 years old, and I don't know who I am because I've never been allowed to find out. That ends today. Patricia looked like she'd been slapped. This is insane. You're throwing away everything. I'm not throwing anything away. I'm choosing myself for the first time in my life. Tears began to stream down Patricia's face. Your father is mortified. The Wellingtons are threatening to sue for the cost of the wedding. Everyone is talking. How could you do this to us? Jennifer felt a pang of guilt, but she didn't let it shake her resolve. I'm sorry, Mom. I really am. But I can't live my life to make you proud. I have to live it to make myself whole. Patricia stood there, trembling, then turned and walked back to her truck. She drove away without another word. Jennifer sank back down onto the bench, shaking. Daniel sat beside her again. That was brave, he said quietly. That was terrifying. Those aren't mutually exclusive. Jennifer laughed, a broken sound that was half sob. What have I done? Something hard. Something necessary, something right. They sat in silence again. The sun was higher now, warming the park. Jennifer's phone buzzed in the small bag she'd somehow managed to hold onto through everything. She ignored it. It buzzed again and again. You're going to have to talk to them eventually, Daniel said. I know. Just not yet. Where will you go? Your parents' house probably isn't the best option right now. Jennifer hadn't thought that far ahead. She didn't have her own apartment. She'd been living with her parents while planning the wedding, saving money for the house she and Marcus were supposed to buy in Billings. I don't know, she admitted. Daniel was quiet for a moment, then said, I have a guest room. It's small. Nothing fancy, but it's quiet. You could stay there for a few days until you figure things out. No expectations, no pressure, just a safe place to think. Jennifer looked at him, this stranger who somehow understood her better than people who'd known her all her life. Why would you do that for me? Because 23 years ago, someone did something similar for me. An old farmer outside of Billings let me stay in his barn while I figured out my next move. He asked me 3 questions. Did I have a place to go? Did I have a plan? Did I need help? I answered no to all 3, and he said, well then, I reckon you can stay here until those answers change. He never asked about my past, never judged my choices, just gave me space to become who I needed to be. His name was Henry Peterson. He passed away 15 years ago, but I still think about him. What he gave me wasn't just a place to sleep. It was permission to start over. Jennifer felt fresh tears, but these were different. Not tears of fear or regret, but of gratitude. Okay, she whispered. Thank you. They stood. Jennifer looked down at her dress again. This beautiful, expensive costume. I can't go anywhere like this. Daniel pulled off his suit jacket. It's not much, but it'll cover the dress a bit. My truck is just over there. We can take the back roads to my farm. No one will see. As they walked to his truck, an old blue Ford that had clearly seen better decades, Jennifer felt the weight beginning to lift from her chest. She was still scared. She still didn't know what came next, but she was breathing freely for the first time in 2 years. Daniel's farm was exactly what she'd expected, and nothing like it at the same time. The house was small but well-maintained, white paint gleaming in the afternoon sun. Fields of golden wheat stretched in every direction, swaying in the breeze. A red barn stood behind the house. Chickens pecked in the yard. A black and white border collie came running up, tail wagging furiously. That's Scout, Daniel said. She's friendly. Jennifer knelt down, not caring about her dress anymore, and let the dog lick her face. The simple joy of it made her smile. A real smile. Genuine and unforced. Inside, the house was sparse, but comfortable. Worn furniture, books everywhere, a wood stove in the living room. It smelled like coffee and bread and something indefinable that was just peaceful. Guest room is upstairs, first door on the left, Daniel said. There should be some clothes in the closet. They belonged to my sister when she visited years ago. Might be a bit out of style, but they'll fit better than a wedding dress. Bathrooms across the hall. Make yourself at home. Jennifer climbed the narrow stairs and found the room. It was small, with a simple bed covered in a quilt, a wooden dresser, and a window that looked out over the fields. She sat on the bed and finally let herself cry, really cry. Deep sobs that came from the center of her being. She cried for the embarrassment she'd caused, for the relationships she'd probably damaged, for the version of herself she'd been trying so hard to be and had finally let go. But beneath the tears, there was something else. Relief, freedom, a sense that, despite the chaos, she'd done the right thing. She eventually changed out of the wedding dress, folding it carefully and laying it on the bed. She found jeans and a soft flannel shirt in the closet, just as Daniel had said. They fit reasonably well. She washed her face, scrubbing away all traces of makeup, and looked at herself in the mirror. Her hair was a mess. Her eyes were red and puffy. She was wearing borrowed clothes in a stranger's house, with no idea what her future looked like, and she looked more like herself than she had in years. When she came back downstairs, she found Daniel in the kitchen. He'd changed into his regular clothes, jeans, a work shirt, boots. He looked more comfortable, more himself. He was making coffee. "Feel better?" he asked. "I don't know," Jennifer said honestly, "but I feel real." He poured 2 cups of coffee and handed her one. They sat at the kitchen table, a simple wooden piece that looked handmade. Outside the window, the sun was beginning its descent toward the horizon. "What do I do now?" Jennifer asked. It was the second time she'd asked him that question today. "Well, practically speaking, you probably need to have some conversations with your parents, with Marcus. You'll need to figure out where you're going to live long term, what you're going to do for work. But that's all logistics. It can wait a day or two." "What about the other part? The figuring out who I am part?" Daniel smiled. "That takes longer, and it's different for everyone. For me, it was working with my hands, growing things, being outside, reading books I actually wanted to read instead of law journals, making friends slowly, on my own terms, living simply. I used to want to teach," Jennifer said softly. "Elementary school. I loved kids, loved helping them learn. But my parents said it wasn't practical, that the money wasn't good enough, that I should do something more prestigious. So you got a degree in business instead." "How did you know?" "Because it's what people do when they're living someone else's dreams. They make the practical choice instead of the passionate one." Jennifer cupped the warm coffee mug in her hands. "Is it too late? I'm 25. I don't have a teaching certificate." "It's never too late. You could go back to school. Get certified. It might take a year or 2, but so what? You'll be 27 with a job you love instead of 27 and still miserable." They talked as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Daniel told her more about his life, how hard the first few years had been, learning to farm, learning to be alone, learning to be comfortable with his choices when everyone else thought he'd made a mistake. He told her about the satisfaction of harvesting wheat he'd planted, of fixing a fence with his own hands, of sitting on his porch in the evening with nothing but the sound of crickets and his own thoughts. Jennifer told him about her childhood, about being the banker's daughter with all the expectations that came with it, about her love of books and children, about her dream of traveling, about the slow way she'd let all of that get buried under the weight of other people's plans. "I don't even know if I like Marcus as a person," she admitted, as darkness fell. "He's fine. He's not mean or cruel, but he's also not real. Like, he says what he's supposed to say, does what he's supposed to do. I'm not sure I've ever had a genuine conversation with him." "Did you tell him that?" "How could I? Everyone was so excited about the wedding." "Jennifer, can I tell you something that took me too long to learn?" She nodded. "Other people's excitement about your life doesn't mean you're obligated to live it. Your parents' pride in your choices doesn't mean those have to be your choices. Making other people happy is kind, but sacrificing your entire existence for it is martyrdom, not love." Jennifer felt those words sink deep. I think I needed to hear that. Her phone buzzed again. She'd been ignoring it all afternoon, but now she looked. 53 missed calls, dozens of texts, messages from her mother, her father, Marcus, Rebecca, relatives, friends, all demanding to know where she was, if she was okay, how she could have done this. "I should respond to at least some of these," she said. "Probably, but you don't have to do it tonight if you're not ready." Jennifer opened a message to her mother. "I'm safe. I'm sorry for the embarrassment, but I meant what I said. I need some time. I'll call you in a few days." She sent a similar message to her father. Then, after a long hesitation, she opened Marcus's messages. He'd gone from confused to angry to worried. The last one, sent an hour ago, said, "Jenny, please just tell me you're okay. We can fix this. We can talk." She wrote back, "I'm safe, but Marcus, we can't fix this. I should never have said yes. You deserve someone who loves you the way you deserve to be loved. And I'm not that person. I'm sorry for hurting you, but this is the truth. I wish you well." She hit send before she could second-guess herself. That was hard. Daniel observed. It was honest. That counts for something, right? It counts for everything. They went to bed early. Jennifer lay in the unfamiliar guest room listening to the sounds of the farm. Crickets, the wind in the trees, the distant hoot of an owl. It was so different from her parents' house in town, where she could always hear traffic, neighbors, the constant hum of civilization. She thought about what Daniel had said, about living his own life, about the homeless man who had been smiling, about the difference between a life that looks good and a life that feels good. She'd hurt people today, her parents, Marcus, all those guests who'd gotten dressed up and driven to Ashford expecting a wedding. The guilt sat heavy in her stomach, but beneath the guilt was something stronger, certainty. She'd done the right thing, a hard thing, a painful thing, but the right thing. Eventually, exhausted from the emotions of the day, she fell asleep. She woke to the smell of coffee and bacon. Sunlight streamed through the window. For a confused moment, she didn't know where she was. Then she remembered the church, the running, Daniel, the farm. She groaned and put a pillow over her face. Yesterday really had happened. She got up, brushed her teeth with a toothbrush Daniel had thoughtfully left for her, and went downstairs. Daniel was in the kitchen, cooking breakfast like it was any normal Tuesday morning. "Morning," he said. "How'd you sleep?" "Better than I expected, honestly." "Good. Eggs?" "Sure." They ate breakfast together, and then Daniel said, "I've got work to do today. The farm doesn't stop for drama. You're welcome to stay here, read a book, whatever you need. Or if you want to help, I could use an extra pair of hands with some fence mending." Jennifer had never mended a fence in her life. "I'll help." They spent the morning working together in the warm September sun. Daniel showed her how to tighten wire, how to hammer a post straight, how to test the fence's strength. Her hands got dirty. She sweated through the borrowed flannel shirt. Her muscles ached. It was wonderful. "You're a natural," Daniel said, watching her secure a post. "This is the most useful thing I've learned in years," Jennifer said, laughing. "My business degree didn't teach me how to fix anything real." That's the problem with a lot of education. It prepares you for a world that doesn't really exist. They worked in comfortable silence, the kind that doesn't need to be filled. Jennifer found her mind quieting, focusing just on the task at hand. This wire, this post, this moment. Around noon they broke for lunch, sandwiches and lemonade on the porch, watching the wheat fields sway. Scout lay at their feet, panting happily. "Can I ask you something?" Jennifer said. "Of course. Do you ever get lonely? Out here by yourself?" Daniel considered the question. "Sometimes. Humans are social creatures, and I'm no exception. But there's a difference between being alone and being lonely. I spent years surrounded by people and felt completely isolated because I wasn't really connecting with anyone. I was performing a role. Now, I might go days without talking to someone, but when I do connect, like this, with you, it's real. I'll take real and rare over fake and constant any day. Do you ever date? Have relationships?" He smiled. "Occasionally. Nothing serious in years, though. Most people don't understand why I choose this life, and trying to explain it gets exhausting. Plus, I learned after Nicole that I need someone who sees me, not someone who sees potential they want to mold." "Nicole was your fiancée? In New York?" "Yeah. She loved the lawyer Daniel, the one with the salary and the prospects and the country club membership. When I told her I was leaving, she literally laughed. She thought I was joking. And when she realized I wasn't, she got angry, said I was throwing away everything we'd built, but we hadn't built anything. She'd been dating the man I was pretending to be." Jennifer thought about Marcus. "I think Marcus was dating the woman I was pretending to be too, probably, and that's not fair to either of you. He deserves someone who genuinely wants the life he's offering. And you deserve to be loved for who you actually are." That afternoon, Jennifer's phone rang. Not a text, an actual call from her mother. She answered, her stomach clenching. "Hi, Mom. Jennifer." Patricia's voice was cold. "Where are you?" "I'm safe. That's all you need to know right now. You owe us an explanation. You owe everyone an explanation. Do you have any idea what the last 24 hours have been like? The Wellingtons have lawyers calling. The caterer is demanding payment. The guests are spreading the most awful rumors. And your father, Jennifer, your father is so hurt." Guilt crashed over her. "I know, Mom. I'm sorry, but I had to." "You had to what? Humiliate your family? Destroy your future? Act like a selfish child?" The words stung, but Jennifer kept her voice steady. "I had to be honest. I don't love Marcus. Marrying him would have been a lie." "Love!" Patricia spat the word. "Marriage isn't about love, Jennifer. It's about partnership, stability, building a life together. Love is a fairy tale." "Then I want the fairy tale," Jennifer said quietly. "Or at least, I want the chance to find it. I want to be with someone who makes me feel alive, not suffocated. I want a life I chose, not one I inherited. You're making the biggest mistake of your life, maybe, but it's my mistake to make, isn't it? It's my life, Mom, not yours. There was a long silence. Then Patricia said, her voice cracking, "You're not welcome at home right now. Your father, he can't even look at photos of you without getting upset. When you're ready to apologize properly to make this right, you can call us. Until then, I don't think we have anything to say to each other." The line went dead. Jennifer stood on the porch, phone in hand, tears streaming down her face. Daniel came out, took one look at her, and wrapped her in a gentle hug. She sobbed into his shoulder, all the pain and guilt and fear pouring out. "They hate me," she choked out. "They're hurt. That's different." She said, "I'm not welcome home." "Then you'll find a new home. People do it every day." "How can you be so calm about this?" Daniel pulled back, looking at her with those steady gray eyes. "Because I lived through it. My parents said almost the exact same words to me 23 years ago. They called me selfish, said I was throwing away my future, said I'd regret it. And you know what? They were wrong. I never regretted it. Not once. And eventually, it took 5 years, but eventually, my mother reached out. She still doesn't understand my choices, but she accepted them. Your parents might come around too, or they might not, but either way, you'll be okay. How do you know? Because you're stronger than you think. You proved that yesterday. Over the next few days, Jennifer fell into a rhythm on the farm. She helped Daniel with chores, feeding the chickens, collecting eggs, weeding the garden, fixing equipment. She read books from his extensive library, rediscovering her love of literature. She took long walks through the fields, just her and Scout and the enormous Montana sky. She also started making plans, real plans, for a life that was hers. She called the local community college and asked about teaching certification programs. They could enroll her for the spring semester. She'd need to take some prerequisite courses, do student teaching, but within 18 months, she could be certified to teach elementary school. She looked at apartment listings in Ashford. There was a small one-bedroom above the hardware store that was affordable, even on a teacher's salary. She called Rebecca, who had been her only friend brave enough to reach out. Rebecca came to visit at the farm, bringing some of Jennifer's clothes and personal items she'd managed to smuggle out of the Hayes house. "Your parents are still furious," Rebecca said, sitting on the porch with Jennifer and Daniel. "But honestly, Jen, I've never seen you look this alive. Even with everything that's happened, you look more like yourself than you have in years." "I feel like myself," Jennifer admitted, "for the first time in forever." "Marcus is a mess, though. He really didn't see it coming." Jennifer felt a pang of guilt. "I should have been honest with him months ago. I was a coward." "You were trying to make everyone happy," Rebecca said gently. "That's not the same as being a coward. What's everyone in town saying?" Rebecca grimaced. "Do you really want to know?" "Probably not, but tell me anyway." "Well, there are 3 main camps. Camp 1 thinks you had a mental breakdown and need help. Camp 2 thinks you're incredibly selfish and irresponsible. And Camp 3, the smaller but growing camp, thinks you're actually kind of brave." "Brave?" Jennifer laughed bitterly. "I ran away from my own wedding." "You ran toward yourself," Daniel said quietly. "There's a difference." Rebecca looked at Daniel with interest. "You know, people are talking about you too. The mysterious farmer who showed up at the wedding and then left with the bride. The gossip mill is working overtime." Daniel shrugged. "People can talk. Won't change my life any. Aren't you worried about your reputation?" "I stopped worrying about what people think a long time ago. That's kind of the point of the life I chose." Rebecca smiled. "I think I like you, Daniel Crawford." As the days turned into a week, Jennifer began to venture into town. The first trip was terrifying. She went to the grocery store with Daniel, and the moment she walked in, conversations stopped. People stared. She could feel their judgment, their curiosity, their disapproval. But she held her head high and bought her groceries. And when old Mrs. Peterson from the library approached her, Jennifer braced herself for criticism. Instead, Mrs. Peterson hugged her. "Good for you, dear," the elderly woman whispered. "I married the wrong man because everyone expected it. Spent 43 years being miserable. Don't you do the same." That unexpected kindness made Jennifer cry right there in the cereal aisle. Not everyone was kind, of course. Some people deliberately turned away when they saw her. She overheard whispered comments. "Selfish girl. Poor Marcus. What a spectacle." But there were others, more than she expected, who offered small nods of support. A smile from the waitress at the diner, a thumbs up from one of her former high school teachers. A note slipped into her hand by a woman she barely knew that said simply, "You're braver than I was." She ran into Marcus 2 weeks after the wedding. That wasn't. She was leaving the post office and he was going in. They nearly collided. "Jenny," he said, his voice strained. "Marcus, hi." They stood there awkwardly. He looked tired. Older somehow. His perfectly styled hair was slightly messy. His usually impeccable suit was wrinkled. "I've been wanting to talk to you," he he said. Okay. They walked to the park, that same park where Daniel had found her on the day everything changed. They sat on a bench, the September afternoon warm and clear. I need to understand, Marcus said. What did I do wrong? What could I have done differently? Jennifer's heart ached for him. Marcus, you didn't do anything wrong. That's almost the problem. You were perfect. You are perfect. Just not for me. But we were good together. Everyone said so. Everyone except us. Marcus, when was the last time we had a real conversation? Not about wedding plans or where we'd live or what furniture we'd buy, but about actual things. What we think about, what we dream about, what scares us. Marcus was quiet, clearly thinking. I don't know, exactly. We were playing house. We were doing what was expected, but we weren't really connecting. I loved you, he said, and his voice broke on the words. Did you? Or did you love the idea of me? The banker's daughter, the pretty girl who would fit perfectly into your life, who would be the right kind of wife for a successful lawyer. Marcus opened his mouth to argue, then closed it. After a long moment, he said, maybe both. I don't know. I thought what we had was enough. For you, maybe it was. But Marcus, didn't you ever want more? Didn't you ever want someone who looked at you and felt that spark, that aliveness? I thought that was just movie stuff. Not real life. It's real, or at least it should be possible. We both deserve the chance to find it. They sat in silence. Finally, Marcus said, I was angry at first. Really angry. I wanted to hate you, but honestly, in the last 2 weeks I felt lighter somehow. Like I didn't realize how much pressure I was under to be the perfect fiancé, to plan the perfect life. It's exhausting, isn't it, trying to be perfect? Jennifer smiled sadly. It really is. My mother is furious, of course. The Wellingtons don't tolerate embarrassment well. But my dad, surprisingly, he said something interesting. He said that when he married my mom, he felt this moment of absolute certainty, like every cell in his body knew it was right. He asked me if I'd felt that with you, and I realized I hadn't. I'd felt satisfied, accomplished, like I was checking off the right box, but not certain, not that deep in your bones certainty. I'm sorry I didn't give you the chance to find someone who makes you feel that way. Don't be. You gave me a wake-up call. I'm 29 years old, and I've been living on autopilot, following the script my family laid out. Maybe it's time I figured out what I actually want. They parted on good terms, not friends, but no longer entangled in hurt and anger. As Jennifer walked away, she felt another weight lift. Marcus would be okay. They'd both be okay. That evening, sitting on Daniel's porch watching the sunset, Jennifer said, I saw Marcus today. How did that go? Better than I expected. I think he's starting to see that this was right for both of us. Good. Clarity is a gift, even when it comes wrapped in pain. Jennifer watched the colors paint the sky. Daniel, can I ask you something personal? Sure. Why did you really come to my wedding? You said you needed to see me one last time, but we'd never even had a real conversation before that day. Why did you care? Daniel was quiet for a long moment. The sun dipped lower, turning everything golden. Finally, he spoke. Do you remember about 3 years ago, there was a day you came into the hardware store? You were with your father, helping him pick out supplies for some project. You were probably 22, home from college for the summer. Jennifer tried to remember. Vaguely. I was there buying fence posts, and I overheard you talking to the store owner's son, Jimmy, the one who's intellectually disabled. The other customers were being impatient with him because he was having trouble ringing up their purchases. But you started talking to him about the book he was reading. You recognized it, something about dinosaurs, and you talked to him for 10 minutes about dinosaurs, asking him questions, really listening to his answers. You made him feel seen. I remember Jimmy. He's sweet. After you left, Jimmy told his father that you were the nicest person he'd ever met. And I thought, there's someone special, someone who sees people, really sees them, not what they can do for you, or how they fit into your world, but who they actually are. Daniel continued. After that, I noticed you around town, and I saw that light in you, that genuine kindness, that curiosity about the world, that spark of someone who hadn't been ground down by life yet. And then I watched it start to fade when you got engaged. I watched you become smaller, quieter, dimmer. It hurt to see. So when I heard about your wedding, I told myself to stay away, that it wasn't my place, but I couldn't. I had to be there. I had to know if that light would come back, if you'd remember who you were before the world told you who you should be. Jennifer felt tears prick her eyes. You saw all that from a distance? Sometimes distance gives you the clearest view. Daniel, She didn't know what to say. This man had seen her, really seen her, when she'd been invisible to herself. You don't have to say anything, Daniel said gently. I just wanted you to know that someone noticed. Someone saw your worth, even when you'd forgotten it. They sat in comfortable silence as the stars began to appear. Scout settled at their feet with a contented sigh. The wheat fields rustled in the evening breeze. Somewhere in the distance, a cow lowed softly. I start my teaching certification classes in January, Jennifer said. I'll need to find that apartment, Get a job to pay for school and rent. I can't stay here forever. You can stay as long as you need to. But yes, eventually you'll need to build your own life. That's how it works. The landing pad is temporary. The flying is forever. Will we stay friends after I leave? Daniel smiled. I hope so. You're one of the few people I've connected with in years. I'd like to keep you in my life. If you'll have me. I'd like that too. As autumn deepened into winter, Jennifer did move into that apartment above the hardware store. It was small and drafty, but it was hers. She got a job waitressing at the diner, saving money for school. She enrolled in her classes. She started building a life that belonged to her. Her relationship with her parents remained strained. Her mother wouldn't speak to her at all. Her father would occasionally text, brief, awkward messages that said things like, "Hope you're well," or "Cold today." It wasn't much, but it was something. She remained friends with Daniel, visiting the farm on Sundays, helping with chores, sharing meals. Their friendship deepened into something comfortable and real. He was the first person she'd call when something good happened, the first person she wanted to tell when she had a bad day. He became her best friend, but she was also building other connections. She made friends in her classes, other people starting second careers, chasing dreams they'd deferred. She reconnected with old friends from high school who had moved back to Ashford. She started volunteering at the library's children's reading hour, rediscovering her love of working with kids. Her student teaching placement was at Ashford Elementary, in a third-grade classroom. The first day she walked in and saw 23 eight-year-olds looking up at her with curious eyes. Something clicked into place. This was right. This was where she belonged. The children loved her. She had a natural way with them, patient and kind, but also firm and structured. She made learning fun. She saw each child as an individual, with their own strengths and struggles. She was, her supervising teacher told her, a natural-born educator. Spring came, bringing with it warmth and new growth. Jennifer was driving back from the farm one Sunday evening when her phone rang. Her father. "Dad?" She answered, surprised. "Jennifer, can you come by the house? Your mother and we'd like to talk to you." Her heart pounded. "Is everything okay?" "Everything's fine. We'd like to talk, if you're willing." She drove to her childhood home, her hands shaking on the steering wheel. She hadn't been inside since before the wedding. The house looked the same. The perfectly manicured lawn, the symmetrical flower beds, the impressive facade that had always felt more like a museum than a home. Her parents were waiting in the living room. Her mother looked older, thinner. Her father's hair had gone grayer. They both looked tired. "Hi," Jennifer said quietly. "Sit down, sweetheart," her father said. She sat on the edge of the sofa where she'd spent her childhood, feeling like a stranger in her own history. Patricia spoke first, her voice soft, and nothing like the angry woman on the phone months ago. "We've been talking. A lot. About you, about us, about everything that happened." "Okay," Jennifer said cautiously. "I was angry," Patricia continued. "So angry. You embarrassed us, cost us money, made us the subject of town gossip. I felt like you'd rejected everything we'd given you, everything we'd tried to do for you. Mom, Patricia held up a hand. "Let me finish. But then, a few weeks ago, I ran into Cheryl Morrison at the grocery store. You know her. She was my roommate in college. We hadn't talked in years, and she told me that her daughter had just gotten divorced after 8 years of marriage. 8 years of being miserable, trying to make it work, because she felt like she couldn't admit she'd made a mistake. And Cheryl said to me, 'At least your Jennifer was brave enough to stop before she made that mistake.'" Patricia's voice cracked. "And I realized she was right. You were brave, and I had been so focused on my own embarrassment, on what people would think, that I hadn't stopped to consider what your life would have been like if you'd gone through with it. 8 years, Jennifer, or 20, or 40, stuck in a marriage you didn't want, with a man you didn't love, living a life that wasn't yours. I would have sentenced you to that because I cared more about appearances than your happiness." Tears were streaming down both their faces now. "I'm sorry, Jennifer. I'm so sorry. I should have asked you if you were happy. I should have noticed you weren't. I should have cared more about who you were than who I wanted you to be." Jennifer crossed the room and hugged her mother. They both sobbed, months of pain and regret and love pouring out. Her father joined them, wrapping his arms around both his wife and daughter. "We're proud of you, Jenny," he said roughly. "You're becoming a teacher. You're building your own life. You're brave and strong and exactly who you should be. We're sorry it took us so long to see it." They talked for hours that night, really talked, for perhaps the first time in Jennifer's adult life. She told them about her classes, her student teaching, her dreams of maybe starting a literacy program for struggling readers. They listened. Really listened, asking questions that showed genuine interest rather than judgment. Her mother even asked about Daniel. "He's my friend," Jennifer said. "He helped me when I needed it most. He's a good man. I'd like to meet him." Patricia said. Properly, I mean. I'd like to thank him for taking care of you when we weren't. That next Sunday, Jennifer brought Daniel to dinner at her parents' house. She'd been nervous, her two worlds colliding, but she needn't have worried. Her father, it turned out, had done some research. He'd discovered Daniel's past, his former life as a high-powered lawyer. Columbia Law? Robert said over dinner. That's impressive. Daniel smiled modestly. It was a long time ago. Different life. What made you leave? I wasn't happy. Success on paper doesn't mean success in life. Robert nodded slowly. I'm beginning to understand that. I spent 40 years building a bank, but I nearly lost my daughter in the process. Makes you question your priorities. The conversation flowed naturally. Patricia asked Daniel about farming. Genuinely curious, Daniel told stories about his early days, learning everything from scratch, the mistakes he'd made, the satisfaction he'd found. Jennifer watched her parents seeing him, really seeing him, and felt a deep sense of peace. As they were leaving, Patricia pulled Jennifer aside. He's special, she said quietly. The way he looks at you, that's something real. Mom, we're just friends. Patricia smiled knowingly. If you say so, dear. In the car, Jennifer replayed her mother's words. The way he looks at you. She thought about Daniel. His kindness, his wisdom, his steady presence, the way he made her feel seen and understood, the way her heart felt lighter when she was near him. Had her feelings shifted from friendship to something more? And if so, when had that happened? She started paying attention. The way her pulse quickened when she saw his truck coming up the road. The way she found excuses to visit the farm more often. The way she felt safest and most herself when sitting on his porch, talking about everything and nothing. She was falling for him, maybe had been falling for him all along. But what about him? He'd been her friend, her support, her guide through the hardest time of her life. Did he see her as anything more than someone he'd helped? Did he feel what she was starting to feel? One Saturday in May, almost 8 months after the wedding, Jennifer drove out to the farm. She found Daniel in the barn, repairing a piece of equipment. He looked up when she entered, his face breaking into that warm smile that made her heart skip. Hey, he said. Wasn't expecting you today. I needed to talk to you about something. He put down his tools, giving her his full attention. What's up? Jennifer took a deep breath. This was terrifying. More terrifying than running from the church. More terrifying than facing her parents. More terrifying than anything she'd done in her life. But if she'd learned anything in the last 8 months, it was that courage meant doing the scary thing anyway. Daniel, I need to tell you something, and I need you to just listen until I'm done, okay? He nodded, concern flickering in his eyes. When you found me in that park, I was a mess. I was lost and scared and had no idea who I was or what I wanted. You gave me space to figure it out. You didn't try to fix me or tell me what to do. You just saw me, the real me, not the version I'd been performing. And over these months, you've become my best friend, the person I trust most in the world, the person I want to share everything with. She paused, gathering courage. But somewhere along the way, Daniel, my feelings changed. Or maybe they were always there, and I just wasn't ready to see them. I'm falling in love with you. Maybe I've been falling since that first day. Or maybe it's been gradual, I don't know. But I know I'm in love with you now, with your quiet strength, your wisdom, your kindness, with the way you see the world and the way you've helped me learn to see it too, with who you are when no one's watching, genuine and real and beautifully yourself. Daniel's expression was unreadable. Jennifer's heart was pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. I know this might be weird, she continued, words tumbling out faster now. I know you might not feel the same way. I know I'm younger than you. And maybe you still see me as that crying bride you rescued. If that's the case, I understand. I don't want to lose your friendship, but I couldn't not tell you. I've spent too much of my life being dishonest about my feelings, and I promised myself I'd never do that again. She finally stopped talking, breathless, terrified. Daniel stood there for a long moment, just looking at her. Then, slowly, he smiled. Not his usual smile, but something deeper, warmer, filled with an emotion that made her breath catch. Jennifer, he said softly, I've been in love with you since I saw you talking to Jimmy about dinosaurs 3 years ago. Her heart stopped. What? I told myself I was too old for you, that you needed to find yourself first, that I had no right to complicate your journey. When you ran from that church, I knew you needed a friend, not another man trying to influence your decisions. So I became your friend, and it's been both the easiest and the hardest thing I've ever done. Easy because being with you is like breathing. Natural and necessary. Hard because every time you smiled at me, every time you laughed at one of my terrible jokes, every time you fell asleep on my couch after a long day, I wanted to tell you how I felt. But you needed time to be just Jennifer. Not someone's daughter, not someone's fiancé, not someone's girlfriend, just you. Jennifer felt tears streaming down her face, happy tears this time. I was waiting, Daniel continued. stepping closer to her, waiting for you to find yourself completely before I said anything. I figured if you found yourself and didn't want me, at least you'd know who you were and what you wanted. That was more important than my feelings. And now, Jennifer whispered, now I see a woman who knows exactly who she is, a teacher who lights up children's lives, a daughter who's built real relationships with her parents, a friend who shows up for people, a person who's brave enough to be honest about her feelings even when it's terrifying. You found yourself, Jennifer, and I can't stay silent anymore. I'm in love with you, completely, hopelessly in love with you. They stood there in the barn, surrounded by hay and equipment and the smell of earth and animals, and Jennifer realized this moment, this honest, real, imperfect moment, was everything her wedding day should have been. Can I kiss you? She asked. Daniel laughed, a sound of pure joy. I've been waiting 8 months to hear that question. When their lips met, Jennifer felt that certainty Marcus's father had talked about, that deep-in-your-bones knowledge that this was right, this man, this moment, this life she'd chosen. It was right in a way nothing had ever been right before. They started dating officially after that, though really, they'd been building toward this for months. The town talked, of course. The runaway bride and the hermit farmer was too good a story not to gossip about. But Jennifer had learned not to care what people said. She knew her truth. She knew her heart. Her parents approved, surprising her again. He makes you happy, her father said simply. That's all we want now, your happiness. Even Rebecca, when she heard the news, said, I kind of saw this coming. The way you two looked at each other, there was always something there. Jennifer finished her certification that May and was offered a full-time position at Ashford Elementary starting in the fall. She'd be teaching 2nd grade. When she got the news, Daniel took her out to celebrate, a fancy dinner in Billings, something he rarely did, leaving the farm for the evening. I'm so proud of you, he said over candlelight. You did it. You built exactly the life you wanted. We did it, Jennifer corrected. I couldn't have done any of this without you. You're stronger than you know. You would have found your way eventually, maybe, but I'm glad I found it with you beside me. That summer was golden. Jennifer spent her days preparing for the school year, her evenings and weekends at the farm with Daniel. They fell into an easy rhythm, cooking together, working together, simply being together. Scout had adopted Jennifer completely, following her everywhere. One Sunday evening in August, they were sitting on the porch watching the sunset, a ritual that had become sacred to both of them. Daniel was quiet, more so than usual. Jennifer could tell something was on his mind. What are you thinking about? She asked. Daniel turned to look at her, those gray eyes she'd come to love more than anything. I'm thinking about the future. What about it? I'm 53 years old, Jennifer. You're 26. That's a significant age gap. Jennifer's heart clenched. Are you having second thoughts? No, he said quickly. The opposite, actually. I'm thinking that I don't want to waste time. I wasted years in New York, living a life I didn't want. I don't want to waste any more time now that I've found the life I do want, the person I want to share it with. He stood up, walked into the house, and came back a moment later. He knelt down in front of her chair. Jennifer's breath caught. This isn't a ring, Daniel said, holding up a small wooden box. Because I know you have complicated feelings about wedding rings and traditional proposals after everything that happened, but this is a promise. He opened the box. Inside was a delicate silver bracelet with a small charm, a wheat stalk, perfectly detailed. Jennifer Hayes, you are the bravest, kindest, most genuine person I've ever known. You light up every room you enter. You make me laugh. You make me think. You make me want to be better. I love you more than I thought it was possible to love another person. I want to spend the rest of my life with you, however long or short that might be. I want to wake up next to you every morning. I want to grow old with you. I want to build a life together that's ours, not anyone else's. Tears were streaming down Jennifer's face. So, I'm asking you, with no pressure and no expectations, would you marry me? Not a big wedding with 200 people we barely know. Just us, and the people we truly love, and a commitment to build a life based on honesty and love and being completely, imperfectly ourselves. What do you say? Jennifer laughed through her tears. Yes, 1,000 times yes. Daniel slipped the bracelet onto her wrist, then pulled her into his arms. They held each other as the sun set, painting the Montana sky in shades of orange and pink and gold. Scout at their feet, the wheat fields swaying in the evening breeze. How do you want to do this? Daniel asked. The wedding, I mean. Jennifer thought about it. Small, really small. Just our closest people. Maybe here, on the farm, in the spring when everything's blooming. That sounds perfect. And Daniel? No running this time, I promise. He smiled against her hair. I know. This time, you're running towards something, not away. They got married the following April in Daniel's front yard, with 20 people in attendance. Jennifer wore a simple white sundress. Daniel wore jeans and a button-up shirt. Jennifer's parents were there, her mother crying happy tears. Rebecca was the maid of honor. A few of Daniel's farming neighbors attended, people who'd slowly become his friends over the years. Jennifer's favorite students from her class made a flower arch. There was no dramatic music, no formal procession, no performance, just Jennifer and Daniel, standing in front of a local minister, promising to love and honor each other, to be honest and kind, to build a life together based on mutual respect and genuine affection. When the minister said, "You may kiss the bride," and Daniel leaned in to kiss her, Jennifer felt that certainty again, that bone-deep knowledge that this was right. This man, this life, this moment, all of it was exactly what she'd been running toward that day in September when she'd fled from the church. At the reception, a simple barbecue with music and dancing, Patricia pulled Jennifer aside. "I need to say something," her mother said. "What is it, Mom?" "I was wrong. About so many things. About what makes a good life. About what you needed. About what matters. But mostly, I was wrong about love. I told you marriage wasn't about love, that it was about partnership and stability. But watching you with Daniel, that's what it should be. Partnership built on love. Stability that comes from genuine connection. You have what I've spent 40 years wishing I had. Mom, your father and I are good together. We're companions. Partners. But we're not this." She gestured at Jennifer and Daniel, who was across the yard, laughing with one of his farmer friends. "We don't light up when we see each other. We don't have that spark. And I spent so long thinking that was normal, that romance was for movies and novels. But it's not. It's real. And you found it. I'm so happy you ran from that church, Jennifer. You saved yourself." Jennifer hugged her mother tight. "Thank you for saying that. Thank you for teaching me. You're braver than I ever was." As the sun set and the party continued, Jennifer found herself standing at the edge of the yard, looking out over the wheat fields that had become home. Daniel came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "Happy?" he asked. "Beyond happy. Daniel, can I tell you something? Always. That day in the church, when I saw you in that back pew, something shifted. I didn't know it then, but I think some part of me recognized you. Recognized that you represented everything I was looking for. Authenticity, courage to be yourself, a life built on truth instead of appearances. You were the permission I didn't know I needed. And you," Daniel said softly, "were the reminder I'd forgotten. For 23 years, I'd been content alone, living my quiet life. But when I saw you, I remembered that life could be more than just content. It could be full. You filled all the spaces I didn't even know were empty. They stood there as the stars began to appear, holding each other, surrounded by the people they loved and the life they'd chosen." Jennifer thought about that terrified woman who'd run from the altar almost 2 years ago. She'd been so lost, so confused, so desperate to escape, but with no idea where she was running to. If someone had told her then that she'd end up here, married to a farmer she barely knew, teaching second grade in her hometown, genuinely happy in the simple life she'd built, she never would have believed it. But life, she'd learned, had a way of surprising you. The courage to make one hard choice, to run from something wrong, had led her to everything right. The man who'd followed her that day had become her partner, her best friend, her love. The small town she'd felt trapped in had become home. The simple life she'd once looked down on had become the foundation of her joy. She'd learned that courage wasn't about not being afraid. It was about being terrified and doing the hard thing anyway. That happiness wasn't about meeting expectations, but about being honest about what you truly wanted. That love wasn't about perfect weddings or checking the right boxes, but about finding someone who saw you, really saw you, and loved all of it. And she'd learned that sometimes the best thing you can do is run. Run from the life that's killing you. Run toward the possibility of something real. Run until you find yourself and the people who love the person you actually are. Jennifer Crawford. She'd taken Daniel's name, finding power in the choice this time, looked up at her husband. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what? For seeing me, for waiting for me, for loving me enough to let me find myself before you told me how you felt, for showing me what a real partnership looks like." Daniel kissed her forehead. "Thank you for being brave enough to run, and brave enough to stop running when you found home." As the night deepened and the celebration continued behind them, Jennifer thought about all the people watching, all the lives that might be touched by her story. She hoped someone out there who was standing at their own altar, feeling that crushing weight on their chest, would find the courage to listen to it. She hoped someone who was living someone else's life would give themselves permission to build their own. She hoped someone who felt lost would understand that running away from wrong was the first step toward finding right. Because in the end, that's what her story was about. Not about a wedding gone wrong, but about a life gone right. Not about running away, but about running toward. Not about fear, but about the courage to be honest with others, and most importantly, with yourself. The moon rose over the Montana wheat fields. Music drifted from the yard. Daniel held her close, and Jennifer Crawford, formerly Hayes, runaway bride turned beloved teacher, wife, and finally, completely herself, smiled, because she'd learned the most important truth of all. Sometimes you have to lose yourself to find yourself. Sometimes you have to break to become whole. And sometimes the person who saves you is the one you never expected, the quiet farmer in the back pew who saw you when you couldn't see yourself. The wedding guests began to leave, hugging the newlyweds, offering congratulations and blessings. Rebecca was the last to go, pulling Jennifer into a tight embrace. "You know what's amazing?" Rebecca whispered. "2 years ago, I was standing behind you holding your dress, watching you fall apart. And now look at you. You're glowing. You're whole. You're exactly where you're supposed to be." "It's funny how life works out," Jennifer said. "It's not funny. It's brave. You were brave, Jen. And it paid off." After everyone had gone and they'd cleaned up the yard, Jennifer and Daniel sat on their porch now, as Jennifer had officially moved into the farmhouse the week before. Scout was sprawled at their feet, exhausted from all the attention. "So, Mrs. Crawford," Daniel said, taking her hand, "how does it feel to be married?" "Right," Jennifer said simply. "It feels right. How about you, Mr. Crawford? Any regrets about marrying someone 27 years younger than you?" "Not even one, though I should warn you. I'm going to be 70 when you're still in your 40s. I might slow you down." Jennifer laughed. "Daniel, you work harder at 53 than most people do at 30. I think I'll be the one struggling to keep up with you." They sat in comfortable silence, the kind that only comes when two people are completely at ease with each other. After a while, Jennifer spoke. "I've been thinking about something." "What's that?" "About legacy. About what we leave behind. You left behind a successful law career, and some people probably think that's a waste. But you've built this farm, this life, this example of what it means to live authentically. That's a legacy too. Maybe a better one." "Where's this coming from?" "I guess I'm thinking about my students, about the kids I'll teach over the years. If I can show even one child that it's okay to be yourself, that success isn't just about money and status, that kindness and authenticity matter more than appearances, that would be a life well lived, wouldn't it?" Daniel squeezed her hand. "You're going to touch so many lives, Jennifer. You already do. Do you know that half the town talks about how you transformed that struggling reader, Tommy Martinez? His mother told me at the grocery store that her son actually loves school now because of you. That's real impact." Jennifer felt warmth spread through her chest. Tommy had been one of her biggest challenges and greatest triumphs in her first year teaching. He'd come to her reading 2 grade levels behind, frustrated and convinced he was stupid. She'd spent lunch breaks with him, found books about topics he loved, dinosaurs and space, and slowly, patiently helped him discover that he could read. By the end of the year, he was reading at grade level and had started checking out books from the library on his own. "I love teaching," she said softly. "I love seeing their faces when something clicks, when they realize they can do something they thought was impossible. I can't believe I almost gave that up for a life in Billings as a lawyer's wife, going to charity luncheons and planning dinner parties. That life makes some people happy," Daniel said. "It's not wrong. Just wrong for you. That's the thing I've learned. There's no one right way to live. Marcus ended up engaged again. Did you hear?" Rebecca told me, "to a woman who actually wants the life he's offering. They seem really happy together. See, everyone finds their place eventually. You just found yours sooner rather than later." A shooting star streaked across the sky. Jennifer gasped and pointed. "Did you see that? Make a wish," Daniel said. Jennifer closed her eyes, but she didn't wish for anything. What could she wish for that she didn't already have? A man who loved her completely, a career that fulfilled her, parents who'd learned to support her choices, a home that felt like sanctuary, health, happiness, peace. "What did you wish for?" Daniel asked. "Nothing. I have everything I want." "Not even one thing?" Jennifer thought for a moment. "Okay. Maybe one thing. I wish I could talk to that scared version of myself standing in that church 2 years ago. I'd tell her it's going to be okay, better than okay, that running is the right choice, that the fear and pain and uncertainty will lead her exactly where she needs to be. If you could go back, would you change anything?" Jennifer considered this seriously. "No, not even the hard parts. Getting engaged to Marcus, going along with everyone's plans, reaching that breaking point, It all taught me something. I needed to hit that wall to find the courage to climb over it. I needed to feel that suffocating weight to understand what freedom really means. Wise words for someone so young, Daniel teased gently. I learned from the best, she shot back, nudging him with her shoulder. They eventually went inside, climbed the stairs to the bedroom that was now theirs, and fell asleep in each other's arms. And Jennifer slept peacefully, without the nightmares that had plagued her in the months before her first wedding, without the anxiety that had sat on her chest like a stone. She slept like someone who had finally come home. Boss. 5 years later, on a warm September morning, Jennifer stood in her classroom at Ashford Elementary, writing the day's agenda on the board. Her second graders would be arriving soon, and she was preparing for a lesson on courage. They'd been reading a book about a young girl who had to make a hard choice, and Jennifer wanted to talk to them about what courage really meant. The bracelet Daniel had given her during his proposal still gleamed on her wrist. She touched it absently, a habit she'd developed when she needed to ground herself. Her phone buzzed. A text from Daniel. Don't forget, your parents are coming for dinner tonight. Your dad wants to talk about something. Jennifer smiled. Her relationship with her parents had grown stronger over the years. They'd learned to see each other as people rather than just roles. Daughter, mother, father. They'd learned to communicate honestly. Her father had even started volunteering at a literacy program Jennifer had started, reading to struggling students. You inspired me, he'd told her. I spent 40 years managing money. Maybe it's time I invest in something that really matters. Her mother had joined a painting class and discovered she had artistic talent. She'd even had a small show at the local library. I'm 62 years old, Patricia had said, and I'm just now figuring out what makes me happy. Better late than never, right? The classroom door opened, and her students began filing in, their young faces bright with Monday morning energy. Good morning, Mrs. Crawford, they chorused. Good morning, everyone. Take your seats, please. We have an exciting day ahead. As she taught the lesson on courage, Jennifer told them a story, not her own story. They were too young for those details, but a story about someone who had to choose between what was easy and what was right. About someone who found the courage to be honest, even when it was scary. Courage isn't about not being afraid, she told her students, their eyes wide and attentive. Courage is about being afraid and doing the right thing anyway. It's about being honest with yourself and others, even when the truth is hard. A small hand raised. Sophia Martinez, Tommy's younger sister, who was just as bright and curious as her brother. Mrs. Crawford, have you ever had to be really brave? Jennifer smiled. Yes, Sophia, I have. And you know what? It was the hardest thing I've ever done, but it was also the best thing I've ever done, because being brave and honest opened up a whole new life for me, a life where I get to be myself and do what I love. Like teaching us? Another student asked. Exactly like teaching you. This is exactly where I'm supposed to be. After school, Jennifer drove out to the farm. Daniel was in the barn as usual, and Scout came bounding up to greet her. The dog was older now, gray around the muzzle, but still full of energy when Jennifer arrived. How was school? Daniel called out. Perfect. We talked about courage today. Appropriate topic for you. They worked together preparing dinner. Jennifer had learned to cook over the years, finding joy in the simple act of creating meals with fresh ingredients, many from their own garden. Daniel had expanded his farming operation slightly, not too much, just enough to keep things interesting and sustainable. When her parents arrived, they all sat down to dinner together, something that had become a monthly tradition. Robert brought wine. Patricia brought a pie she'd baked herself, something she never would have done in her old life of perfect appearances and catered events. After dinner, over coffee and pie, Robert cleared his throat. Jennifer, Daniel, your mother and I have been talking about something, and we wanted to discuss it with you. Jennifer felt a flicker of anxiety. What is it? We're selling the house, Patricia said. Jennifer's eyes widened. The Hayes house on Elm Street was a landmark, a symbol of her parents' status in Ashford. You're selling it? Why? Robert and Patricia exchanged a look. It's too big, Robert said simply. It's always been too big. We bought it because it was what successful people were supposed to do. Have the biggest house, the best address. But it's just a showcase, not a home. We rattle around in all those rooms, maintaining appearances nobody cares about. We're buying the old Miller cottage, Patricia continued. You know the one by the river? It's small, cozy. It has a studio space where I can paint, a garden where your father can actually work with his hands instead of paying someone else to do it. It's what we should have had all along. Jennifer felt tears prick her eyes. I'm so proud of you both. We learned from you, her mother said. You showed us it's never too late to choose the life you really want. We're just sorry it took us so long to learn the lesson. That night, after her parents had left and she and Daniel were getting ready for bed, Jennifer stood at the bedroom window, looking out over the moonlit fields. What are you thinking about? Daniel asked, coming up behind her. About how everything changes, how my parents, the people who seemed so fixed in their ways, found the courage to change. How this farm, which I barely noticed for most of my life, became home. How that terrified bride running from a church became this. She gestured at their room, their life, their peaceful existence. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you'd gone through with it? If you'd married Marcus? Jennifer turned to face him. Sometimes. I think I would have been miserable. I think I would have gotten divorced eventually, probably after having kids to try to save a failing marriage. I think I would have spent years in therapy trying to understand why I felt so empty, despite having everything I was supposed to want. But mostly, I try not to think about it. Because this, she gestured between them, this is real. This is what I was supposed to find. Daniel pulled her close. I wonder sometimes too. What if I hadn't gone to the wedding? What if I'd convinced myself to stay away? But you didn't. You followed your instinct. You were brave enough to show up. We were both brave enough. That's the story, isn't it? Two people who found the courage to be honest, to choose authenticity over appearances, to build something real. And they stood there in the quiet bedroom, holding each other. Two people who'd found each other in the most unexpected way. A runaway bride and a farmer. A teacher and a former lawyer. Two souls who'd recognized something true in each other and had the courage to reach for it. Outside, the Montana night was vast and clear. Stars scattered across the sky like diamonds. The wheat fields whispered in the breeze. An owl called from somewhere in the distance. Everything was exactly as it should be, and in that moment, Jennifer understood something profound. Happiness wasn't about the destination. It wasn't about arriving at some perfect place where everything was easy and nothing hurt. Happiness was about the courage to keep choosing yourself over and over, even when it was hard. It was about building a life that was genuinely yours, filled with people who saw you and loved you for who you actually were. It was about running from the wrong things and toward the right ones. It was about a quiet farmer who'd shown up when she needed him most. Not to save her, but to remind her she could save herself. It was about this, a small farmhouse, a simple life, a love built on truth, and the absolute certainty that every hard choice that had led her here had been worth it. Jennifer smiled, kissed her husband, and climbed into bed. Tomorrow she'd teach her students about fractions. Tomorrow Daniel would repair the fence in the south field. Tomorrow her mother would come by with a new painting to show them. Tomorrow life would continue in its beautiful, simple, authentic way. But tonight, she was just grateful. Grateful for courage, for honesty, for second chances, and for the unexpected man who'd seen her light even when she'd forgotten it existed. Sometimes, she thought, as sleep began to claim her, the best love stories don't start at first sight. They start with a woman running from a church, a man quietly following, and two hearts brave enough to be real. And that, Jennifer Crawford knew deep in her bones, was a story worth living.